Okay, so we're going to pretty much getting pretty close to wrapping up this video series. But there's one particular area that I really want to talk about, and I hope I can remember all of the points I wanted to make about it. Because it's been something that has been bothering me for the last 10 years, and I didn't know it was a thing until I actually started working in the corporate world. I had been self-employed for 20 years and as a youth, and had a really small experience working for a corporation when I was younger. But then I found that I was much happier working for myself. And but the last 10 years, I actually started working for a corporation again, and it completely reminded me of why I did not like working for corporations. And the first thing I remember was when I had applied to work at this location. I had to sit through a long safety series. I had to sit through the videos, and I had to fill out papers and learn about safety. It's like I was like, wow, this safety thing is pretty amazing. Am I going into a job that's going to kill me? Because there is a lot of talk about safety. And there's equipment and things that you have to lock out and tag out, which is a very good thing. It's important to do that, especially when you're working around a lot of other people, and if they don't know what they're doing, or if you don't know what you're doing, you could end up, killing yourself. So that is a good aspect of the safety program. So I went into this thinking, okay, I'm going to be open-minded, and so I get into this company, and I realize that safety is more than just a word. It's more than just safety first. It actually turns into what I would consider to be a religion. Yeah, I mean, I was reminded of what it was like to be brainwashed when I was a kid in the particular religion that I was raised in. It was constant. I used to have to go to a seminary after school, and I would have to go to mutual nights every Wednesday during the week, and I would have to participate in visiting families and participate in welfare projects, and I would have to participate in Sunday for 3 hours and 3 hours plus on Sundays to worship God and to do work for the Lord. And so as I was sitting here in this company doing my job and participating in the safety program, I realized that the safety program was reminiscent of what religions do to try to manipulate or brainwash you into doing what they're asking you to do. And the thing is, it's just like any religion where you would sit and you would talk about these things that you're supposed to do. But then as soon as you would leave the room or leave the church house, you would immediately go back to your regular habits, right? It's like it was just pure lip service. I think religions are one of the biggest lip service things that man has ever created. And so, for instance, I'll give an experience. So I was sitting in a safety meeting, and we used to have these little safety meetings every morning, and this one particular person was in charge of the safety topic of the day, and it had to do with three-point contacts. It had to do with whether or not you're holding the handrails as you were walking up the stairs, because you could slip and trip and fall and hurt yourself or kill yourself. So it was a worthwhile topic. And this particular individual was very proud of being a safety person and thought he was the safest person in the entire plant, pretty much, the way he would talk. Well, you know what was funny, though, is after we would do that safety meeting, we would all go outside the building to do our stretches, our 2-minute stretches that we would do that were actually too short and too quick, and it would cause you to get injured more easily because we weren't doing them properly. But anyway, as we were doing our stretches, this particular individual ended up carrying his toolbox and another item up the stairway without using a three-point contact. And I pointed him out. I said, hey, everyone, I'm going to call him, let's give him a fake name, okay? Let's call him Andrew. I said, look at Andrew. He's walking up the stairway, and he's not even using a three-point contact, and he just got done giving the safety topic lesson about three-point contacts. Okay, And that's the thing about these religions and these safety programs and this brainwashing, is that humans tend to make a choice. And the brainwashing that you try to do to get someone to do something doesn't work. Okay? A lot of people just shut their minds off during safety programs or during religions, and they're not even there. And I hate that. I do not like being brainwashed. I do not like being manipulated to do something that I have already made a choice whether I was going to do it or not. And I just thought that was a very memorable experience to see that individual walk up the stairs without using a three-point contact after he just got done talking about how safe he was with the rest of the people in the room. Yeah, and there were so many safety things that we had to do. I mean, we had to go to safety focus groups. We also had to fill out paperwork every week and turn it into the supervisor. And then we would have buddy safety stuff where you'd have to go and do the paperwork with a buddy. And then we had the safety meeting every morning, and then we had the monthly safety meetings, and then we would have extra safety meetings, and you would have to stay after work almost all the time doing safety stuff. And I remember that it got so bad that I actually made a song about it. Because there was this particular song that we would sing when we were kids, and I actually changed the lyrics to the church song and added my own lyrics for the safety, to change it to sound like a safety song instead of a church song, a Jesus or God song. I actually changed the words, and I actually sang it. Yes, I have become crazy over the years after working for that corporation. My mind is not as stable as it was before I started working there. The amount of brainwashing they do, and the amount of, I would call them mental attacks. It actually started making me go loony, because I'm a person that does usually what he is told, and you don't need to tell me more than once. And when you start telling me more and more and more, I start getting angry at people around me who aren't doing it. Because I realize that the reason why they keep inundating me with this safety stuff was because there was people that weren't doing it. And so I would see individuals who weren't doing the safety stuff, and it would frustrate me, because it's like, look, dude, I want them to shut up about this. And they would shut up about it if you would just do it. So I ended up getting this name for myself as being the safety avenger. Whenever Brent's around, make sure you're doing it right, because he'll turn you in. But see, that's how I was for the first few years. I was a safety avenger, right? I would make sure, and then the reason why was because I was tired of hearing about it. I wanted it to go away. I wanted them to quit making me have to do all of this stupid paperwork, all of this, these focus groups and all of this stuff. And it literally, I'm telling you, it actually broke something in my brain. It actually made me kind of loony, because I couldn't take the fact that they were inundating me with this stuff, and yet people around us were getting away with not doing it. Okay? And it's like, what the hell's going on? So eventually I gave up on the safety avenger, right? I was like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care about anyone else's safety anymore, because you know why? They don't care either. And so then I kind of faked it for like the last 5 years I was there. The first 5 years, I was trying to do what they told me. And then the second 5, I pretty much just kind of just lip serviced it and said, yeah, it's important that we're safe. Unless it was legitimate. Like when I talked about my wolves and sheep discussion, I actually brought up where I stood up for someone in my late game working for that company, that I was concerned because we were getting injured. And so that also brings us to, actually, I don't want to go into that yet. But so going back to what I was talking about, the inundation. It was so bad that we had one particular safety manager who had us put stars on a chart in the break room. Okay, you remember when you were in kindergarten and you would put the star on the chart? when you would do something and everyone in the class had their name up on the wall? Well, that's what they were doing. Okay? Yeah. I mean, they were taking it to such an elementary level. It reminded me of when I was in grade school. Like when I was in kindergarten and first grade. And that's what they were doing with full-grown adults. Yeah, and a lot of it was because of the plant manager that we had. The plant manager was really hardcore safety, and so that person would push the safety program beyond any any level of greatness that I have ever seen in my life. I mean, it would be like the Michael Jordan of safety. It would be like the world's best safety program that ever existed was under this particular plant manager. Because after this plant manager left, believe it or not, I wished that person was back. Yeah, because the safety after that person left, it fell through the floor, like really bad. But I remember they had this thing called Safety 24/7. So at the pinnacle of the safety program with this particular plant manager, they had this book, and this book was called Safety 24/7, and we would literally sit in focus group meetings with this book, and we would read passages from it, and then we would talk about what the passages meant. What does that remind you of? Do you remember? Does that remind you of anything if you're a religious person? Okay, and people would actually have markers and colored pencils, and they would underline passages in this book. This book called Safety 24/7. Okay, and I would joke about it. I would say, they're like every minute of every hour. And so I changed it to every second of every minute. Safety 24/7. It's like, and then I don't remember what the numbers were, but I'd come up with the seconds and the in the minutes and all that, 60 seconds in every minute and all this stuff. But anyway, that was like the pinnacle. And the thing is, I watched the pinnacle fall. I was at that company long enough to see that safety program turn into something that was a nightmare on one extreme, and then become the other extreme all within that tenure that I had there working for that company. And when it fell apart is when that safety manager left, and a new manager came, and this new manager was all about the numbers. This manager was all about productivity, and the manager wasn't there very long. I mean, this manager came in, pretty much dismantled the safety program. So Safety 24/7 went away. And one of the first times it happened was that we were told that we were supposed to rotate more often, because rotating was better for you than to stay in the same job doing the same thing over and over. But when this new manager showed up, he didn't want us rotating anymore. Okay, because it required too much training. It required too much time for the company to train all of these operators on how to work the entire plant. So what they did is they locked us in position. Okay? So they locked us in positions where we couldn't really rotate, and we were doing the same job day after day after day. All right? And that's when things started happening in that company, and that's when I realized that the safety program, there's a reason why they call it behavior-based. Okay? Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the safety program. And this is the truth. This is what is going on when it comes to the safety program. And it took me a long time to figure out what exactly it means. Behavior-based. Okay, so what that means is, it is anything that has to do with the employee creating the safety issue, not the company. It's not the company's fault. It's your fault. It's your behavior that created the problem, that created the safety issue, that created the injury or the fatality. Okay, that's the secret, okay? They're not going to talk about the things that they do that are safety issues that they don't want to talk about. Okay? So they went ahead and locked us in positions, and therefore people started quitting their jobs, started moving around because they didn't want to work in that spot any longer because it became too hard for them to do, right? Because they weren't rotating. And then I ended up getting moved into another position because I had my back problem. And so I started working there, and then we started having this manager who came in and sped everything up, made everything a lot faster. And the thing is, because of this happening, it made the job for where I worked even more strenuous. In fact, everyone in my shift that worked in that area started getting overuse issues. Well, I took it upon myself, and I went to HR and said, what's going on? And this happens to be the exact same HR manager that I've talked about in the past. This person would not even go out and observe us working. This person just showed up working this position. She was like number 7 or something in the list. And she didn't even know what we were doing out there. And so I went and talked to her. I was like, why aren't you observing what's going on? You have all of these people coming to you, talking to you about these certain problems they're having, and you're completely not even around to see what they're doing. You're just taking the word of the managers and the supervisors that it's just the employee being lazy. And so I called her out, and so she ends up going out there and starts observing with the safety manager. And guess what? They actually find that there's some things that probably need to change. But it just kept going, and the speed of the equipment went faster and faster. And so I went to the plant manager at that point. I said, look, and this is when I found out he was leaving. He hadn't even been there a year yet. And I said, look, man, I said, you've got all of these employees that have got these overuse injury issues. And where are we going to get the help? Because they would give us temporary workers that were garbage. I mean, it took more work for us to train them and then to fix the problems that they would create, that it was actually better that they weren't even there. I mean, there was one day where I actually went to the supervisor and said, look, you've got to send this person home. This person is making it harder for us. We would be better without him. And he did. He actually sent him home, which was nice. Because usually the supervisors wouldn't listen to you. But it just depends on what particular supervisor you had. And if they weren't very good, they tend to get promoted. But anyways, so the injuries were mounting up because they didn't have a solution for what we were doing to help us with the increased load. They just went ahead and sped up all the equipment and didn't help us on the packaging end of everything. And so that's when I realized that when they talk about behavior-based, that has to do with you as an employee. Whatever the company does, there's no judging. You're not allowed to point out and say, hey, what the company's doing is getting us injured. No. You shut your mouth. You cannot say that. That is not your job to say that. But yet they taught us. They taught me for like 8 years about safety. Safety 24/7. What to look out for. What to do. And here it was. The company was implementing changes that was causing overuse issues with its employees. And we had people getting injured left and right. But yet, for some reason, it wasn't a very serious thing because it wasn't an employee, caused injury. Or they swept it under the table, or they didn't want to report it, so it didn't hit the TIR, the numbers and all this stuff. But anyway, it got to the point where I realized that the safety program's job is to do what? It's to provide documentation for a lawsuit. So if an injury occurs at the place of work, the company can say, look, we had his person sign this, and this. He signed this paperwork that he agreed, that he understood, and that he knew what he was doing when he was doing the job. And so it's all defense. The safety program is nothing more than a business defense program that protects the company from the employee. Which I agree with, though. You have to. There are so many rotten people out there who are looking to get paid for getting injured. Okay, I'm not going to I don't really want to bring it up, but I have been injured in the past at certain jobs, and guess what? I was always treated fairly. I was always treated well, and there was no reason for a lawsuit at all. They took care of me, okay? But there are people out there that aren't like that. There are people who are dishonest, people who you would not want working for you, who would take advantage and abuse the system. Okay, and I saw that happen there at that company. I saw people who had jobs who shouldn't have never been hired. Well, I saw them change the equipment so that equipment would work for that one individual, but then become harder for the rest of the crew because that one particular person had a problem, because that person didn't really fit the job description to be able to do the job in a way that would be safe for them to do to begin with. But they were hired anyway because that person fit a criteria. That person fit some kind of an affirmative action to where the company would make money if they hired that employee, or because that employee was particularly sexy and they wanted to hire that person. I mean, that shit goes on all the time in companies. And so then the rest of the employees have to cater to that one individual because that one individual can't do the job unless they move all of the settings on the equipment to fit that one person. While the rest of them, the rest of the 90% of the employees have to struggle harder to do their job because of their catering to that one person. I've seen it, okay? I've seen it firsthand. And like I said, I've also seen it where I've had people come onto the location and say, well, it sure would be nice to get hired in a place like this so I could get injured and sue them. I've heard that. I was working in a position where I had access to outside people who would actually come to the plant to do certain jobs. And they would say, I heard one individual say that he would have loved to have gotten hired there, so therefore he could be injured. That is what is going on in this country. You have got so many dishonest, horrible people. And then what happens is these companies become super protective of themselves, which they should, because it's my job too. I don't want some guy coming into my place of work and faking an injury or actually getting injured and then suing my place of work that pays me a paycheck to pay for some loser that literally was what I call a predator. It was a predatory technique that he came to try to get hired intentionally just so he can get hurt. And there are people out there like that. And that's why you have these safety programs that are so over the top now. I mean, we all know about the past when companies used to get employees killed all the time. And there was really hardly any blowback for that, right? The company would be like, oh, that's the risk of the job. But now what it is, it's the thing is if it's employee caused, then it's okay because, we have all the paperwork and all the papers that he signed. But when it's the company that actually creates the injury, no one talks about that. This is a behavior-based safety program. Behavior. They want it, and they try to drill in your head that all injuries can be prevented. Not necessarily. Because if the injury is caused by a non-behavioral issue, then could it have been prevented when that particular company does nothing about it to prevent it from happening? So there's a lot of things in these safety programs that they like to pound on their chest and say that we love the employee. Well, anyway, I watched that Pinnacle safety program fall and break into shambles because the people that took over that plant didn't have the same mindset. And I watched a lot of people get injured because of the fact that the safety was not adhered to like it used to be. But the thing is, a lot of the injuries were because of the fact that the plant itself actually was creating the injuries because of overuse and not listening to the employees when the employees were asking for help. We're asking for more help, more employees, or other ways of doing the process so they wouldn't get injured trying to make the numbers all the time. Yeah, so I'm not gonna sing the song, but I'm going to go over the lyrics. It's very short. It basically goes like this: Safety lead me, safety guide me. Safety help me find the way. Teach me all that I must do to return home safe today.